Welcome back, guys. Manchester United, another day without a signing. But first, as always, intro, man. I need to work on the intro. I did that in 5 minutes, but enough about that. Tonight, we have got so much to talk about, and I can't believe that what I'm about to do is I'm about to talk to a rival fan, a very good friend, but a rival fan, and big up just how well their club has done in the transfer market. Now, a few of you might recognise him from Football's 12th Man. He is one of the only Liverpool fans I definitely absolutely adore. Not tolerate, adore. It is my mate, Errol. How you doing, my man?
Yes, people in the chat, good evening. I'm all good, mate, all good. I'm glad that you've got me on. I'm glad that your channel's up and running. And you know what? I actually loved it, even though it's a short intro burst and I know build over time, but I like the logo.
I was going to do a bit of me singing, but I don't think people want to hear that. So I thought just something nice and sort of bang, in we go. How you keeping, mate? You've been so busy over the summer. So busy. Is there anything you don't do at the moment?
Do you know what? Have a break is probably one of them, but at some point I'll probably squeeze one in the next couple of weeks. To be honest, mate, I've been really good. Like, yeah, at the end of the season was mad. Just when you think things will die down a little bit, the obvious celebrations rumbled on. So we've had a big couple of weekends up in Liverpool. And then Liverpool have just kind of kept the foot on the gas in terms of momentum, and went from doing it on the pitch to going to do it in the boardroom, as I'm sure we'll unpack in a little bit. And then from there, yeah, with new signings, there's been other opportunities. So I've popped up in a few little locations, a few little events. Obviously, we had our 12th man link up as well. So we've been down in London. So yeah, it's been busy, but it's been a good busy, mate, because it's all been productive. So I can't really complain, to be honest with you. Looking forward to next season now as well. But yeah, good evening everybody in the chat as well. I appreciate everyone.
It's been a week. We've had we're waiting. Manchester United are waiting for one signing at the moment, and we've kind of alluded to this. It's been a month. It's been a month since we were linked, and in this chat, Errol, he is known affectionately as Bryan. We have been linked with Bryan for a month. We've been told it's close. You know, get ready for the medical. Then it's been, it's just a couple of million. Then it's another one that we're going in with the second bid. Then we're waiting for the third bid. And then it comes out today, you know, this big season for Manchester United, this big rebuild, that it is looking more likely now that they want more money. Now, for me, as a United fan, at the start, I was like, yeah, I get it. It's one of their top players, and he's going to galvanise us. He's going to change the way we play. But then there has to come a moment as a United fan, and I think as Bryan himself, and say, what do you actually want, Brentford? Because we've gone above the Cunha deal now. That's been reported by Laurie Whitwell. What more do they want?
It's a funny one, really, with yourself, because I was just going to ask you when you started breaking it down for me. I was about to just say to you then, do you think that one signing is like a domino effect? And do you think once you pull the plug or you pull the trigger on that one, all of the other just start to fall into place thereafter? Or is this going to be how your summer transfer window goes, where you will identify clear targets? Okay, you miss out on early in the lap. You move on to your strike and you think, all right, we'll put a pin in that for the moment because we think we can get Bryan Bremer over the line, Bryan, as you like to call him, over the line. And then all of a sudden now you think, right, just when they should be accepting a reasonable bid that you've been tabled with, it's a no, and you get knocked back. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, what's the knock-on effect now to the wider transfer strategy for this summer? And does that mean that if you have already clearly identified targets, are you going to get into these mini sagas that get drawn out for 2 to 3 plus weeks, which then limits the amount of volume? We've had these conversations before of how many deals you can ultimately do. And then as a byproduct of that, unfortunately, as well, you've got to look at then what happens with the outgoings. How much difficult does it make to get rid of the ones that you know you need to clear house with? So it will be an interesting one. I think, you know, it's quite obvious he's rejected Spurs already. I'm pretty sure it was. Was he another one on Newcastle's radar at one point, and he told Newcastle to jog on? So it's interesting to see, you know, despite the deficiencies on the pitch for Manchester United, he's still able to go and actually prize top quality Premiership players from their respective clubs. And I think it's necessarily maybe it's an indirect strategy, but Brentford right now, I've got one up on you. On the pitch, they kind of got one up on in Manchester United again. I know size of clubs is different stratospheres, but in terms of what they're doing currently on the pitch, they probably got one up on you. And you weakening them in an attempt to strengthen yourselves might just kill two birds with one stone. So I don't not like Manchester United's overall strategy this year, where they've identified some Premier League players, the likes of Cunha and Bueno. Obviously, Liam Lapp was identified as someone that could have fitted that bill. The attempt to look internally within the league for talent that can push you on whilst also coinciding with potentially dismantling or disrupting the balance of other teams seems like not a cheat code to get yourselves back into the top 10, but if it works, you as a club will definitely be stronger for it. So it'll be interesting. Do I think you need to apply a little bit of patience? Isn't this what you do, though? I haven't seen you for a number of years look to be, not necessarily reactive, but I haven't seen you be ultra proactive in terms of you've got all your deals stacked and it's just about dotting the I's, crossing the T's when either the financial year kicks in or the transfer window opens. Whichever one's the excuse and the little backstop, whichever one that is, there never seems to be a flood of players that are ready to just be rolled out with new kits on and signing signatures and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think you're probably going to be torn between a rock and a hard place for the next couple of weeks.
It's a tough one. Before I go into what my thoughts are on that, let me just say a couple of hellos, because there is some people in here that I've not forgot you guys. I've not forgot you. So we've got Bill Ashby. Welcome back, mate. Has been missing the last couple of streams. I think we're all in the same boat, to be honest, with Newcastle and United at the moment. Moxie, hope you well. The Bryan Brigade is in full swing, and big up to Errol. Sophie, Queen Sophie, is here as always, doing her bits and is absolutely phenomenal. Great support for the channel. Andy, I hope you're well. Lucas, Bryan, got to be close now. We're begging. And yeah, of course, right there, Sophie, all of the top guys on. A lot of love for you, Errol, in the chat here tonight, which must be mad for you being a Liverpool fan. It's incredible.
I know. This is what's saying.
This is the community, mate. This is my community. We're inclusive.
No, I like that. And I say, we do the cartel show together, so it's love whenever we're on a show together. We can always chop it up and have a decent conversation. I understand the pains, and I'd love to be able to give you some proper banter, but I feel like we kind of both got to be in a competitive place if that's going to land properly. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, a little bit of therapy instead. Why not, between two mates?
That hurt. That hurt. That was a thinly veiled, just a thinly veiled one there. I felt that. Welcome, Iniesta. Welcome, Geordie 2 for life. And what have we got here? Jamie as well. Welcome, Jamie, everyone. Every team thinks they can always get more money from United because of the past. It's hard to watch. I'll go into that in a second. And Robert quite easily just says, United are a useless club. Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. So here's where I land with it. Now, Manchester United have come out with this is the new Manchester United. We are not going to be held to ransom anymore. And in theory, that is fantastic. Yeah, we want to hear that. As a football fan, I want to hear that. I want to hear us not going out there and overspending. But unfortunately, I feel like with the Bryan signing here, what they've done, Brentford, is they've said, we're not going to take that bid. Come back a bit more. We're going back with a bit more. And they're saying, we're not going to take that bid. Just come back with a bit more. And I just worry. I don't want us to be going overboard with this signing. We are literally trying to build a team with Premier League players. What comes with Premier League signings is the inflated fees. We get that. But I don't want to be sat here in 3 or 4 weeks' time, which Manchester United have done before, saying, we've just signed Bryan for nearly 100 million quid here. What the hell are we doing? So I worry. I worry what they do. Should they up the bid? I think they should just go flat in now with, instead of these add-ons, just go in with the 65 million up front. Say, look, take it. Take that. That's done.
Do you know what, though? Do you know what's mad? Do you think there's an element of no club wants to get into a bidding war. I think there's been a bit of a change in tact of how clubs really operate, especially within this country in the last probably 3-4 seasons. There seems to be everybody's in their own little lane. They all operate in a little pocket of space. They all have a little window that they're all shopping in. And you go out and at least try and get them. And the breakdown usually ends up with the player, the agent, the representatives, and the club, as opposed to somebody else has poached them on you. There might be a few of those. Like, who was that? It was a Tell. Tell was like flirting with Jews for a minute and then ended up with Spurs. There's a little bit of that, but not as much, I don't think, anymore. And I think it's a case of, had somebody else tabled 55, 60 mil, and all of a sudden Brentford go, okay, yes, but, say, use Newcastle in this example. Yeah, Newcastle will give them that money. We'll take it. Would Man United have been in a better position to say, okay, that's an advanced talks, that's moving along pretty well, but we know directly from the player's camp and his agents that he'd prefer to move to us. So now we know the price to get him for, and just put that on the table. I think you've baited yourselves instead of potentially baiting another club, which is a bit of an old trick, maybe.
The thing with it is, I wonder how far it gets with Bryan, where he turns around and says, "Look, I've stayed quiet. I've been a very good servant to the club. You're starting to price me out of the move here. I told you I want to go there." Where does it get to a point where it sort of sours the relationship between the player and the club? Because Brentford fans adore him. They don't, he's going to go with their best wishes. He's going to make them a lot of money. Where does the line end there at all of that?
I think Brentford are pushing it at this particular moment in time. Yeah, big up, Wolfie. I think Brentford are probably pushing the luck, but at the same time, they don't have to sell. This is the predicament. Even Manchester United will come up against this level of friction from time to time, because the wealth and the riches that get shared amongst the teams in the Premier League, especially those that are going to finish in European spots or in the top 10, they have funds and resources available to them in this day and age that doesn't require them to have to sell their best assets. They will look over a period of time and think, when is the best time for us to particularly put up the for sale sign, as opposed to, oh, we're just going to poach them. And it's not to say that Manchester United don't have the pulling power to do that, because he's already confirmed that that's his preference as a player. But in terms of the clubs aren't as motivated anymore, because the money that they're already getting, an extra 30, 40, 50 mil. Okay, yeah, it can help if they want to go and rebuild the squad or buy extra players. But if they're kind of happy where their squad's at, they don't necessarily need to make that immediate jump. I think Manchester United end up in a position where, if you want them, as you just said there, you've just got to if you want to do it and put an end to the saga, and you determine, because we've done it before with Van Dijk and players like that of that ilk, we know that that's our person. So in the end, you have to just go up to Southampton and just put the 75 M's on the table and say, thank you, we'll take them. Because ultimately, they're the ones that in that situation hold all the power. The player's respectful. He's liked in and around the club with the fans and all the rest of it. He doesn't want to sour the relationship. He wants to go with the blessing of the club. But the club have said, we'll let you go, but we're letting you go for the price that we see fair and is fit for us. Manchester United have to cop for that, and wasting time only delays all of the other bits of business as a result.
Yeah, this isn't going to end anytime soon, I don't think. I was hoping this would be done by sort of pre-season. I can't see it. So before we go on to, because I do want to talk about your club, Errol, I feel like
man, of course
in fact, I owe you an apology, but before I do that, let's just go into some of these comments. So Andy says, buying bad players and poor managers has killed us. That's absolute facts. We've been having that for a while. Geordie Toon for life has my back and says the nearly quad father. Thank you very much, Geordie Toon for life.
Soon land. That is soon. That we'll talk about it, but soon land.
Sophie comes back with a question for you, Errol. Do you think we'll get an Isak out of Newcastle?
I don't want to upset your Toon fan in the chat. I am going to be one of those that says what I've said for a couple of weeks now. We have to test Newcastle's resolve. Some clubs, some seasons, Dan, you'll have had it, Arsenal have had it, we've had it. You get linked to a player, and it's a player that you think that's a big marquee signing, and you spend a number of weeks flirting and doing all of the dance with the player. And really, do you have the intent or the intention to go and sign them? The moment passes and you move on, and you think, oh, that was the season we should have got so and so or X and Y. We've all had them seasons. For me personally, we've got credit in the bank, so we've got the vets through the door. Do you know what I mean? We've got the two fullbacks also now through the door. We've got so we've collected players along the way, and obviously players that we're looking at thinking, wow, hopefully you help kick us on. In that sense, I don't mind if we try and be a little bit obnoxious from a business point of view and say, there's 110 mil. What do you think? And you know full well if they turn around and you like, we've done it ourselves. Bayern are interested in Luis Diaz. They've opened and we told them no. Under no circumstances is he for sale. That means Bayern, unless they come back, I thought I lost you. Unless Bayern come back with a ridiculous Saudi-like fee, we're not about to sell Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich. It'd be the same thing. If Newcastle say absolutely periodically no, we know we've got to go miles north of 110 for it to be worth it. And then at that point, you make the decision. But if they sit there and consider 110 mil for what? 2-3 days? The player said, yeah, I don't mind that. If you just want to sell me, you don't want to put me on my big wages, okay. All of a sudden, they might want to negotiate a higher fee. That higher fee might not be astronomical. So I'd like Liverpool to not necessarily show that ambition because we have already, but I'd like Liverpool to kind of show that aggressiveness in the market because, as I said, at your club, at your level, bringing Brentford down while propping yourselves up, if we could do the same a la Newcastle, it wouldn't be bad for Liverpool's chances, especially in terms of retaining this Premier League.
No, I agree. A bit of feedback on you. I'll put you on mute a second, mate.
Yeah.
So with regards to some comments for Errol before, and I do owe Errol an apology, I'm going to do that next. So the first one is Brendan saying, hey Errol, not a fan of your team, but big up my man. A lot of love for you, Errol, tonight. A lot of love. We've also got a couple of things here. So as Moxie has said, as I've said since day one with Brentford and the Bryan transfer, give them the 65 million they wanted, however we make it up. I agree. There's a couple of comments here about Liverpool signings, which I'm going to go through with Errol. So don't worry, guys, I've not forgot you. What else have we got here? Of course, it's me, Everest, all the way from Bangladesh, and literally up until, it must be, what is it, 2:20 there? Ridiculousness. But before we go into the Errol questions chat, I'm going to unmute him now. But I'm going to say this so he can't say anything whilst I'm saying it. Okay, so here we go. Errol, I'm looking in the camera at you, okay? I have to apologise because we had a conversation after January where a lot of us on Football's 12th Man said Liverpool have been a disgrace with the signings in January. They have left their team wide open. They have taken a punt. They could end up without any of these players staying. Only one of them has gone. And this is what's happened. And this is the difference between Errol's club and my club. And this is what breaks my heart. So they've gone out. They've got Florian Wirtz. They've got Kirkes. They've got Frimpong. They've got the keeper that's come back off a season-long loan that people forget, which is technically a new signing. They're in for a striker. They have gone out and done what Manchester United used to do for years when they were on top, which is go out, get the business done, bring the players in, and then they have the pre-season. And then they get to go and do what they need to do. And if winning the Premier League is what they did last year, and they go out and they get an Isak or they get a top striker other than Isak, I'm telling you all now, and I'll ask Errol this question in a second, I genuinely don't see who challenges Liverpool next season because we all thought City was coming back after this whole signing spree. They went to the Club World Cup, didn't really light it up. Arsenal, are they signing a striker? Chelsea are buying everyone. But as a team with foundations, I feel like Liverpool are absolutely terrifying. So, Errol, that is my apology. And what do you say to that, mate?
Oh, do you know what? I didn't necessarily forget about that, but I remembered when as soon as you said the conversation January, I knew exactly what one because I got roasted for it at the time on the 12th man. And my stance was, it was never necessarily, I didn't want to look under the bonnet of what was going on with the club. but the car was running so well. I was like, yo, while it's running so well, just let me enjoy the car that I've got and it's doing its job. Let me, like, I'll worry about the service and the MOT and to get me. Bro, that was how I felt at the time. And do I feel vindicated for that? Yes. Could it have went completely different? Yes, I get that. Do you know what I mean? And it was, but in my head, there wasn't every Liverpool fan had their own expectations for the season, which I think is a nice thing sometimes. All Arsenal fans right now are fixated on we have to win a major, because of how long they've been doing this dance with Arteta for. You know, Man United fans want to reclaim some, not necessarily dominance, but they want to reclaim, you know, where they should be within the Premier League, so to speak. For us, it was, well, we know it's going to be a year of transitions. Some of us were like, oh, no, we could still challenge for the league. But some of us were like, well, no, as long as we get top 4 and pick up some silverware along the way, I'd take it in Slot's first season, especially after the fact that we didn't really sign anyone in January to address it, or we definitely didn't really do much business in the summer window. And I was just of the mindset that because we had the momentum, because we had the league, because we was top of the league, at the point in the conversation, the Champions League had looked okay as well. I was like, I've got more to enjoy than to really pick apart and start worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. Like, worrying about the summer has to happen after we either win or we lose a league. The mood that Liverpool fans will have will be very different in both of those sets of circumstances. If we win the league, we're going to have the utmost optimism that we can kick on. What we then do in the transfer window is secondary to that, because we've got the momentum of more silverware under our belt. Keeping the important players hopefully sends a message that, you know, we're not going to strip back everything and, you know, it's a new setup or whatever. If we would have lost, then yeah, all of a sudden, one goes out the door, the other one doesn't necessarily confirm, and it drags up until 2 days ago, and he might go on a free. The players that you're linked with are automatically different. Does Verts news even break? Do we just let him go to Bayern because we've not just won the league? Or is it like when we lost the Champions League and we go straight away, that's the guy that's going to change, you go get off Fabinho? So there would have been very different conversations, but in that moment, I was content with just taking it game by game. And I think one of the things that enabled me to do that was I said that from week 1 of our, 12th man. I said, whatever happens this season, all I know is I'm just going to take it game by game and enjoy it for what it is. And I was lucky that it ended up becoming the season that it did. But as you say, mate, it could have went completely different. But in terms of capital, I've never seen it in my lifetime, Dan, I'll be honest with you. What we have been doing the last couple of weeks is phenomenal, and I think Slot deserves it. You know, Slot should definitely be able to turn to his board after the season he's had and say, look, this is what I did without. Let me see what we can do with. And I think, you know, there's a level of Liverpool's recent success over the last 5 years now. If you've been saving up the compound interest on that to then be able to go big in a window, there was never, in terms of those two moments hitting on a graph at the right time, we've just hit that sweet spot, and that's the point of momentum where you can just go boom. And I am hoping that's where, people's will change. There will be more expectations, I think, externally and internally for us to do it, but I'm confident because these lads look hungry to win now as well. If they could play a cup final tomorrow, I think they'd all come back off their holidays and play it if it was available to them. That's the type of characters we currently have at the minute, and I think we're in a lucky position.
I've muted you again, mate, so this feedback doesn't come. There's a couple of questions which I'll come to you with, and I've got a couple of questions as well. Before I go to these points that you've made, chat, everybody, make sure if you are new, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you smash a like. Sophie is doing a wonderful job of pushing that. Now, the thing that also I think Liverpool have done well this season, and don't worry, chat, there is a lot of questions for Errol. I haven't forgotten. You've sold well, and I actually feel like, I mean, obviously, Konza for 35 million, brilliant. Kelleher, I'm still stunned that he went, but I get why he wanted to go. But the one for me, and look, I'm not here to bash him because I think this has just been spoken about to death now. But the one thing for me I will say is getting that sneaky 10 million for Trent as well. When he was done, he was gone, it was done. He's learned Spanish, he's gone. But to get 10 million, that also chucks up into that bit, the PSR, it chucks up to what you can use. Were you happy with that sale there in the end, Errol?
Yeah. At the end of the day, as you say, they paid 10 million for the player in 3 weeks. They could have had for free and just had to pay him. And it's not anywhere close. It might be a tenth of what he's worth in actual footballing terms. But given where his contract was currently at, given his given the nature that he's out of the academy, I think most clubs, maybe not the academy level of academy prospects that have won as much as a Trent, but if you look at the books of most clubs, if they was taking home £10 million for every academy graduate that they had on the books, they'd probably be a very happy club that could probably operate in a very sustainable model. So to speak to all of those ethoses and metrics, then yeah, it's great. To speak to the pure footballing fan, it's actually quite good that we actually got something in the end, because he was trying his hardest to do us dirty. So in the end, Liverpool still showed that they had the respect at the table with Real Madrid to go, okay, yeah, we can't really do it with our blessing, but you put up the money, you have the player when you need the player. And I think some teams, like I was watching a stream the other day and he was saying Real Madrid took Kepa from Chelsea on a season-long loan for £1 million. They paid £1 million. Then he's gone to Bournemouth for £3 million. And now Arsenal have bought him for £5 million. He's fell upwards. Do you know what I mean? And it's like some clubs maybe, and again, that's not to throw shade, but that's just a highlight. Liverpool seem to be operating at the top tables, whether it's on the pitch or in the boardroom at the moment. The people that they are dealing with seem to have the utmost respect for them, respect for the club. And that's taken time to rebuild and repair, because we've been where your current iteration of Manchester United is, where teams will see us as a walking pound sign. Yeah, they've got money to spend and they're going nowhere fast. And we've been there. So it's taken a long time, but Liverpool are reaping the rewards of sticking to a particular process, sticking to a particular structure, trusting the right people with the right levels of experience, and letting them deliver in all areas and all aspects. So as a Liverpool fan, there's not a lot you can look at and really pick at and go at them for at this moment in time. They're never going to be perfect. I'm fine with that. Life isn't perfect. But I think in terms of our outgoings, we do fantastic business and sales. And the thing, I think we're good at juggling. That's what sets us apart from most teams, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, Chelsea can juggle because they've got a waiting list as long as your arm for players. So they've always got a lawyer on speed dial that can say, yeah, just dot the I's on that, cross the T's, and send him in a new shirt somewhere else. We have to be a little bit more calculated with it. But even in that calculations that we do, players like Jarell Quansah are going for 30 mil, mate. £30 million for Jarell Quansah. Don't get me wrong, he's had a full year of playing in the Prem under Klopp, and he's had a bit part playing in the squad for Slot. But the kid's what? 20, 21, something like that, playing in the England under 21 Euros, getting 30 mil for him, and he was hardly on the pitch. What are we going to get for Harvey Elliott, who was playing at the tournament, who's, people are knocking on the door for him? It's crazy, and I just think at this moment in time, our ability to juggle and deal with outgoings while simultaneously dealing with our targets who we want to come through the door is what sets us apart from most teams in the Prem, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, so I will go through the questions again. Do you know what the thing is with me, Errol? It just reeks of what I'm used to. It just reeks of what I'm used to. Sorry, mate.
I'm just going to get a drink of water. I'm still here. I'm listening.
Am I going to be echoey? No, I'm not echoey. So this is what it reeks of to me. It reeks of what Manchester United did for so long, and we've seen this happen for so long. And I genuinely look at the way Liverpool do things. I look at the way we do things, and I kind of sit there and I wonder, is this just the way it is now? The fact that the gap, it was at 40-odd points. The gap is that far between Manchester United and Liverpool. Let's not forget, the gap's never been that far the other way around. And it hurts me to say that, but we were never that far ahead of you, even in our heyday. So is it a case of this is things to come?
I'd say we had our moments where we tailed off pretty bad, like, where we were struggling around 11, 12. But I'd say they lasted for months, maybe even less than that, but probably felt like months at the time, as opposed to consecutive seasons where it's been massively underperforming while still having, like, we would have never kept Suarez, Coutinho. Like, we would have never been able to keep our top talents if we finished lower than 10th. It would have just never happened. You know, you get a lot of players on the continent. They don't have that loyalty, that tie to the club, and all the rest of it. We would have really struggled. I don't think Manchester United can be as bad as they've been last season again. It's not to say you're going to have a massive improvement, but I don't see as I feel like the new season, new energy, all of that kind of stuff to just try and kick on and say, right, we can wipe the slate clean and go forward. I don't see it being as bad. But there's so many moving pieces and use moves. So he's like 18. Is it the 18-wheel trucks trying to do a 3-point? It's that, mate. And it's like, because he's such a massive entity, you can't move with stealth. You haven't got any. You're a blunt force instrument. You've got no finesse about you. And it's not one thing. One player is like, I always used to think there would be times when I'd watch our Liverpool team, and you take the gap 15 points, whatever it might have been, 9 points, and you think there's only one or two players away. And I didn't, maybe because I didn't look at football as forensically as we probably do a bit more now with the amount of information that gets pumped at us. But it always just seemed like on the pitch we're probably only one or two players away. Even if you looked at being on the pitch to say how many players you need, you've then also equally got to stack up how many players you need to get rid of. And then you've got to start thinking about all of the other little components that are going to help give you any level of continuity. So it just feels like the task in this day and age is just so much bigger for Manchester United than it probably ever was for us. And I think as well, and I said this at the time when Klopp left, another reason why I didn't necessarily panic was because you've been doing what you've been doing for 10 years. If you want, you might not have a clear roadmap to continue success, unless you really want to look at City, but it's hard to replicate that model if you haven't got the mad dough. But if you want to replicate and look and see how not to do things once a legend leaves a club, you look at Manchester United post 2011 with Fergie, and then you look at Arsenal 2018 post Arsene Wenger. If you look at those periods, you will understand very quickly what clubs should not be doing once those type of personalities and characters leave the club. And I think that was what gave me the confidence that hopefully they've been smart in the business element of it in terms of buying players. Eventually, they started to get it right in that model. Will they be smart in their succession planning? And I've got to give them the utmost credit because to this point, it's been flawless.
It has, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my fucking heart hearing that. Right, chat. I've been leaving this long enough. Let me get some of your questions in. By the way, Errol, when you come back on the mic, these people in this chat, they are the OGs, mate. These have been with me, some of these since my first TikTok stream. They have been incredible. But they do have some questions for you. So the first one we'll go through, and chat, I'll get through them as quick as I can. The first one's from Brendan, and it says, Errol, what's your thoughts on the fee for Wirtz? Let me get that back on for you, mate.
Not my money. I don't care. He's in a Liverpool shirt, and that's all that matters to me. And what I will tell you, though, is I don't like the goalpost shifting from other fans that now Liverpool have rose the bread for silly money, which it is. And, you know, you can't argue it. It is silly money for anybody. Yeah. But I can't cope with the people that say Liverpool must win X now. You have to win. I can understand you being favourites for it. Yeah, look at this. You're stacked, be favourites. But the expectation that if you don't win, you're bottled it, or you're flopped, or Slot's not, you know, he's a fraud. I don't buy into that because there's probably been about 4 or 5 other players that have been bought for plus 100 mil in the Premier League now, and only City have won medals with theirs. So where was the expectation for them?
What an answer. What an answer. And what another thinly veiled dig at Manchester United there with the millions spent. This guy, man. This guy. I might just keep him on mute for the rest of the fucking night. The next one is Ginny-Esther. So Ginny-Esther comes back and says, question for Errol. Are you worried about the right side defensively? Rizzobo is likely to get dropped, and he did the running for Salah last season and helped Trent a lot defensively.
It's going to be interesting to see. People are speculating that they could be moved to a back 3. We could have wing backs in the system. I think I think football is changing in the sense that because we're now a couple of seasons removed from only having 3 subs. I think the way your squad rotates in and out, even in games, is increasing individual player minutes. So I think there'll be a time and place for all of that midfield engine to be getting run into the ground. And I think that was probably one of the things that we probably even tailed off, maybe definitely in the Champions League campaign, but even towards the back end of the season, where we was getting over the line because it was just that will and that determination that we do not lose here today. It was those type of vibes. But in terms of the overall running power and being able to pop teams off the park towards the back end of the season, we wasn't that same animal. Having extra in the midfield, having extra legs and presence, it's good. Salah being another year older, we already know his comments, what he's come out and said in terms of, you know, how Slot wants to utilise him. I imagine that's going to become more of a go-to. Frimpong's quick, but defensively he's going to have to obviously tune into what the level of the Premier League is going to require. Will that happen over time? Will it happen straight away? We don't know. But one of the good things that gives me the reassurance is where we looked a little bit light sometimes defensively last season, it was often games we didn't have Conor Bradley. Conor Bradley is an immense athlete, and he is someone that will do the defensive work and put in the hard yards defensively. So if it means that we have to get more games initially out of Conor because he understands the system and he understands the level, then I'm prepared to do that, because I think Frimpong will come good, but it is going to take a moment of adjustment to understand exactly how much running you're going to have to do for certain players, because other players within the system may do less for, you know, justifiable reasons if the goal return stacks in the way that Salah's has for the last couple of years.
I think it's an interesting one. I personally think Frimpong is going to be a baller. I wanted him. I was desperate for him. Couple of ones here. So Moxie makes a great point about with what, obviously, again, I know you said it wasn't your money, with what Liverpool paid for Wirtz. Will Newcastle quite rightly so go, well, he's worth 120 to us, and then going further on with Wirtz, Lucas says, desperate to see how Wirtz performs this season. I just don't see him having the season everyone thinks he will. Now, before you come in with this, Errol, what I will say about Wirtz, this kid is immensely talented. This kid, you know, you're not linked with Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Man City. You know, turn down Man City if you haven't got the as Errol would say, the cojones. With that, where do you see Wirtz fitting in for your team?
I honestly agree with what you're saying. One of the things that, again, now I'm post 30. I used to remember we used to play FIFA and used to be able to name all the players and all the up and coming players, and you know them inside and out. And even if you hadn't really seen them play enough football, you knew the way that FIFA had programmed them. Oh, there's something about this one. This one's got a little bit of something in them. I don't even have that kind of level of depth of continental footballers anymore. I've seen him in the flesh at Anfield last season. Didn't particularly have a great game. You could tell he was a good player, but on the team on the night, it didn't really work for them. So on that performance, you wouldn't go, yeah, we're going to go and spend silly money for them in that respect. However, everything that everybody says, you can go and you see the compilations, you can see the highlights, you can see the rumour that he was linked to go here, there and everywhere. That is because he is one of Germany's hottest prospects. And I think it's a case of, I thought when Slot came in, he did try it in pre-season a couple of times with Harvey Elliott, and he didn't do too bad either, really. But he almost had that 10, and it was like quite a bona fide 10 in terms of where he was picking up the ball and how he was kind of assisting. I would like, and I don't know if you could get it out of him, the way we played against City, where we kind of played with two 10s, really, and 2 wide players, and the 10s just flick between being 10s and false 9s. I think it might have been Curtis Jones and Szoboszlai, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've definitely ran that formation at least once. And then obviously it was a bit of a box. You'd have Curtis Jones, Szoboszlai, and then you'd also have Gravenberch and McAllister kind of sitting a little bit deeper, with obviously a Diaz and a Salah. And I think we'd done a couple of quality teams with that formation last year. In terms of the speed for us, he's not the quickest, but does that then help us if he's got somebody close to him where he can just pick up that ball in those little tight spaces, pop it off the 1-2s, dropping a shoulder. He's got a shot on him as well. I would like to see that, but I don't know if that's Slot's I've got your number formation for a particular team, or if that's the style he would want us to play, so we could have dominant possession and be a bit of a more ball commanding team. I think he's going to be a bit of a 10-0. I do. I think he's going to have that responsibility. Does he share that with Dominic Szoboszlai? I don't know if Dominic Szoboszlai just becomes one of those rotational options with Alexis McAllister and Curtis Jones, and it just means that that engine that Liverpool have is just going to be consistent. It doesn't drop off, and it can produce us 8, 9 out of 10 every single week, no matter who's in it. And you've got this maestro in midfield that is going to play, 4 at least. He's going to start at least 4 out of 5 games, and he might come on in the 5th if he's getting rested.
I agree. I think it's going to be a whirlwind with how you do this with the players. A couple of comments here that I'll go through, and then I do want to ask you your opinion on something, Errol, with regards to Man United. So what Errol said about Frimpong, exactly what United fans are slating Dorgu for. I need to remember and understand he was thrown in poorly performing team in the new league in January time. I agree with that. And Moxie, you've always been quite standard with that, so I do back what you're saying there. Ben then also says, been horrible for me seeing Liverpool making those decent signings already when they are already miles ahead. Jealousy is a terrible thing, and we are all jealous, Ben. I completely agree with you. Andy also comes in with us supporters need to chill and get around the team and manager. Rome wasn't built in a day. It wasn't Andy, but Jesus Christ, there's brick by brick, and then there's bloody stone by stone. It's taking forever. And then Jamie also says, Errol, do you think Liverpool would have been as miles ahead of everyone, or do you think it was because other teams around them had a bad season? I'll let you answer that one, Errol. Then I've got a question myself for you regarding United.
I'll be honest, it's half irrelevant, isn't it? Because we said to our, we sat on the 12th man, and we do. That's where we sit and spend most of our big football chat. So if I reference it, that's just is what it is. But we had that discussion basically bigging up Arteta this time, not necessarily this time last year, but just before the season ended. We knew Klopp was going out the door. They didn't look like an automatic successor in terms of anybody else that really wanted to push for a league title. Arsenal seemed to be in good shape if they got the right business. Anyhow, that City drop off, Arsenal should rise to the challenge. That didn't happen. So those two things kind of then said, all right, well, who else is going to do it? Well, I've always said that we are a consistent team. We do show consistency. If that means that we rise to the top of the crop as a result, then great. But it's not guaranteed. But I expect the other teams to push us. It's not our job to get other teams to push us to a level. It's just our job to be consistent. And I've said this till I am blue, purple, black in the face. I have explained to people that many times. I look at a title race as Liverpool versus Liverpool for however many points we can rack up. Once City did the 100 thing, I had to program my head differently because the heartache of putting up stupid numbers and coming up short and finishing second on the last day was crushing. So the only way I can feel like I'm in a title race realistically is once we've pushed past 90 points and you can look over your shoulder and think, right, we're either 2 points off or 2 points ahead. That's the title race in that moment. So the goal is always to try and get as close to 90 points and above as possible. In this particular moment, it might drop back down and average itself back out 85, 87 points, and you get 5 seasons of that. But what City have done under Pep, it's just meant that if you don't, even, and again, 90 points doesn't even feel comfortable. You're counting every point up until 90, you're sweating it because it's not a guarantee. But that is the level, like that is the standard. If you want to consider yourself, where what? Did City win, or did they get 89 points as well? I think we might have been the only team in like the last 6 or 7 years to win on less than 90 points. That's mad in itself, do you know what I mean? So if you're above 90 points, do you deserve to win a league? More often than not, yeah. But if City are involved, it means you're in a title race, and that's just the reality.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, consistency is key, and this kind of goes into what I'm going to say about Manchester United here, and I want to get your opinion. I've spoken to Wolfie, I've spoken to Pete, I've spoken to Lawless about this, and it's interesting because obviously there is that hatred between our clubs, but there's also that honesty from yourself that we always have. So Manchester United, as I've said for a long time, we are not challenging for Champions League next season, and there is a question mark whether if we get a new striker, if we get that midfielder, if we get a new goalkeeper, where we can finish. Now, trying to compete against an Arsenal, a Chelsea, a City, a Liverpool, a Newcastle is not what we're doing. That's not, we're not here for that shop here, okay? We're not buying that from that shop. Here's where we're competing. Here's where Manchester United are competing for me to get back into Europe. They're competing with Bournemouth, Brentford, Villa, Spurs, Fulham, Forest, Palace, and Brighton. And guys in the chat, you'll know I always have my notebook. I've got all of them noted down. I have to make sure I remember which ones are there. What I'm asking you, Errol, is with the signings we make, if we go out and get the signings I've just explained, so a midfielder, striker, and a goalkeeper, we get Bryan through the door. Honestly now, where do you see Manchester United this season? And is it am I being too bold to say that Europe has to be the minimum, or should I be of the opinion, let's get everything in check first, let's get these players out we need to, and then the rest will come afterwards? What are your thoughts on
that? You've got 3 chances to getting into Europe, so I think Europe should be the minimum, however you get there. Does your league form have to pick up? Yes. So you can't do another season, finish in 17th, get to an FA Cup final, win the FA Cup final, and expect everything to be all rosy this time next year. That will still be deemed a failure by your standards. If you finish 8th or 9th with an FA Cup and you're into a European spot, then still a season of progress. But it's not been an overly, it's not something that you would all sing and, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't get over the top about it. You'd think, okay, this is progress. Considering how bad it's been, we have to take a bit of a humble pie and accept that it was never just going to go from bottom to top. There was going to be an incremental step. We're back in the top 10. We've won a medal. That's 5 medals in 7 or 8 years, or trophies, whatever that looks like. There's an argument to say that there's progress made. I think fundamentally where it'll be interesting for you is whether you keep the chain on the tracks or you derail yourselves and get rid of Amorim. If you get rid of Amorim, every time you tend to get rid of a manager, it's pretty much waving the flag for the season, and you typically tend to do it between November and December, and that means then you're spending the next 4 or 5 months with not just ambling through the fixtures with no real purpose. And the fans have ambitions for one thing, but obviously the manager and the coach are saying another thing, because they're just trying to sort the house out again from all of the renovation works that need to be done. If you keep him on the tracks, provided he's getting the results, I can imagine that Manchester United will get back into the top 10. I think he will still be a massively inconsistent team. Hopefully, it's mad because you will lose games, but it's the draws that end up killing you, especially when you've just from run of the mill and you're just middle table. Like, if you end up just silly draws, you just never get that momentum under your belt. With it being 1 game a week, I would expect, I'd be really worried. So let me frame it this way. I'd be really worried if you were playing 1 game a week and you weren't comfortably in the top 10 by November. That would be worrying signs to me, because the FA Cup hasn't kicked in yet. The Carabao Cup, you're probably coming into the quarterfinals. If you're there, you're there. If you're not, no one's ever really overly asked. You're going to win the English domestic. Unless you get to a semi-final of the Carabao Cup, you're not really taking it seriously. But if you fumble your way to the semi-final, all of a sudden you switch on. If his form is indifferent up until November, I would be really, really worried, because I'm like, what are you doing? You've got more time than you will ever be afforded when you are going to be in the Champions League or Europe next season, or whatever you're aiming for it. And you can't even muster continuity or consistency week to week. That would be my big concern with Amorim. If, you look at it the other side, if he goes on and does well and he's in the mix, and, he's are in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup and everything is looking rosy, okay, then yeah, there might be a different conversation. So I have to say, well, we need to at least back him and stick with him and try and give him a bit of momentum as fans, to say it was off to a rocky start, but this season you're on the right tracks, and this is more of what we want to be seeing. Got to push for that. But that would be the one thing that I would be looking out for more than anything else. It's, you've got that week time and that gap, 6-7 days most weeks. Is it working? Are we seeing what you're implementing through the week when it comes to match days? Because you haven't got the distractions, you haven't got it, you're not being pulled from pillar to post. If it's not, they would be some big red flags for me, if I'm being honest with you.
It's I think the thing with United as well. I mean, look, we've had the news of Bryan today, and it's not going the way we hoped, and I still think that will be done. And I'm praying that it will be done before the first day of pre-season. I've sort of given up hope on there being new players in before we play Leeds in a couple of weeks, but there has been news today that it looks like Højlund is on his way out. There is more chance of him. It's looking more likely that, as Laurie Whitwell puts it, that he will not be at the club this season than him staying. So that's a positive for me. And that, again, reaffirms that I think a striker is next. And then, again, this is a bit of a swear word on this channel, I'm afraid, Errol, but Sancho, it seems like he is edging and edging and edging so close to Juventus. Now, we know that there's players linked. We know that it could be Luiz, it could be Vlahovic, it could be Rare. But for me, I kind of feel like now there's a 3-player swing that Manchester United could see here. So we could see Garnacho leave. We could see Højlund leave. We could see Rashford leave. And then also 4-player swing, we could see Sancho leave. In that change, you get Bryan in, you get a striker in, you get a David Luiz in, which I think would be absolutely solid business. And then you get a goalkeeper in. The question I have for you on that is, are Manchester United, from the outside looking in, are Manchester United even capable of pulling off a transfer swing like that?
Yeah, I think you are, just because of the position that all of the players that you've mentioned have left themselves in. I think they are largely on the outside already, so it's more of a formality, and it's probably them pushing. Whereas it's more difficult when you say, all right, all these swings and players that you want to get in, but actually the club aren't looking to sell. The players want the move and the club want the move, so it just has to be agreed. And then again, in terms of getting Bryan over the line, we spoke about that, what it takes. Is that the domino? If he's pulled the trigger quickly, does that speed up the rest of your summer? Or does it mean you're going to drag things out? And then if you drag things out, the other priority areas, you're probably just getting players that can drop in and replace the quality. And what you're losing is quality, but it's just not working at United for a handful of reasons. There's a lot of context to each individual there, but it just hasn't worked. They can go and display their quality elsewhere, and you can get players in that are at least at interview stage saying the right things. Whether they come into the club and deliver is always going to be a different thing, but at least the interview stage, at the time of the interview, they're sitting down there with the shirt and tie on, and you're getting asked, okay, well, what's your new best experience? And tell me something that you're proud of, or tell me whatever the questions are, they're answering them all and passing with flying colours. Will they come in and show that aptitude and want to deliver on the pitch in a Manchester United shirt? You'd like to think if the rotted and the toxic ones are out the door for good now, and Amorim can have things his way, he might stand a better chance. But again, I just go back to is it going to be the domino effect? Is that one movement for Bryan and Mbeumo going to be able to set you off on a bit of a chain reaction? Or does that domino just not fall in time to be able to do it? And it falls and it just lands on its own. Not to say you won't get other bits of business, but in terms of it speeding up and just knitting in nicely, you just put it down pretty quick there. You get you out the door, Sancho out the door, Douglas Luiz in. So that's one. That basically you negotiate that deal once, and you in return get a player. Martinez seems to be heavily linked, but then you've got to negotiate with Aston Villa, and then Bryan and Mbeumo, the conversations are already there. So it's not to say that it's an impossibility. It's going to come back to who's going to be the striker, because I don't particularly think the striker market is great. I think it's overinflated, and you are not the only club in dire need of a top number 9.
Yeah, well, I think that's the problem, isn't it? No matter who we go for, I think if we went for a bloody Accrington Stanley striker, we'd have to pay over the odds by $1 million, because people know we need it. Ginny Esther makes a good point, and my answer to this is simple. So he's asked if you can't get a top striker, Would you be open to playing Bruno Fernandes as a false 9 and then have Mainu start as new number 6? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you, if you're a Gavin Stacey fan, I'll tell you for why. I don't think there is a world where Manchester United, especially with the news coming out about Højlund more than likely leaving the club, there isn't a world where we don't get a number 9. Now, as Errol said, it's who we go for. Now, I'm happy, and it's very rare I can say that about Manchester United, but I am happy that we have not gone now. We've not gone all out for Ekitike, for the Osherman deal, for the Gyökeres deal. As much as I wanted Gyökeres at the start, for a Vlahovic deal, I am absolutely over the moon that we are looking at an Ollie Watkins. And even I've said this last night to Lawless, I wouldn't mind even Tony. I think he's got the arrogance to play up top for us. I think he gets it. So for me, with this question, I don't see a world where Manchester United don't sign a striker. And then also, and of course, thank you so much, Sophie. And guys, I can see some newbies in this channel. We've got 5 minutes left. Make sure that you are subscribing and you are absolutely smashing the shit out of those likes and get them up for me. We are on the road to 500. We've started so well. We've only been doing the live streams, I think it's just over a week, actually. Just over a week, which is phenomenal. This is all down to the support that each and every one of you come and do every night, 9 o'clock. You know what time it is. You're here waiting with plenty of questions, plenty of respect for my guests as well, which I must admit is fantastic. Moxie, I did see your comment before. But this is where Manchester United are. This is where before we close it, and if you've got any more questions for Elle, just drop them in now quickly. This is where we are, and this is where I'm going to sit here and I'm going to flip flop. I think there is a world where, kind of like Errol said, it's the domino effect. I think we are entering now in the next couple of weeks madness at Manchester United. I think with Sancho potentially getting closer, that's the first one out the door for me that has to go. As soon as that goes, I think we will see these signings absolutely start to come in. I don't think we're signing 5 or 6 players. I still believe it will be 3 more players after Bryan. It's all about who we sign and what they can do for us. And as It's Me Everett says, we are the OG fans who are sensible. Wait till you hit big and the trolls start flying. I've already hit it big. I've got fantastic people like you in the chat. I've already hit it big. We're not about the numbers. We're about the people. And Ben says, United should look to lower leagues for a striker. Some bangers out there. For example, Charlie Kelman at QPR, 23-year-old, scores for fun and would cost peanuts in comparisons to other strikers. The problem with that, Ben, I hear what you're saying. It's very rare you go out there and you have a Jamie Vardy that comes in and does what they do. It just doesn't happen anymore. And as Lucas says, the Bryan Brigade is strong. Now, before we leave, guys, Errol has been an absolute superstar tonight for me. He is someone that I respect very, very highly in the footballing world. So, Errol, can you tell us exactly what you're up to and what you've got on coming up?
Yeah, so no, really appreciate. Obviously, I remember you saying that you did your TikToks. I didn't know you did the lives on TikTok. So the fact that obviously you've been able to build a community where you funnel from one platform to the other and people still ride with you, it just goes to show obviously you're doing something right. And I hope we do plenty more of these shows over the next couple of seasons, brother. So as I always make time for you, mate. Absolutely. And yeah, from my end, there will be a Red Cartel this week, and I've got watch-alongs coming back with the channel as well, and I'm going down to London next month for a little bit. But as I say, just Redmen doing a little bit of stuff for the Sleeper app as well. But this is the calm before the storm, mate. You know what it's like these times now. I'm just enjoying, and to be honest with you, you might see me popping up and doing more of these type of conversations on a couple of other fan channels over the summer. I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to just try and do them. I did one with Enns. He's a Liverpool fan last week. I'm doing one with Jamie Phillips. He's a Liverpool fan on Friday. And then a couple of other people have just dropped into me DMs. And I've said for ages, because I was so busy in the season with everything else that was going on, I was like, look, I don't want to overpromise and then underdeliver people. I hate letting people down. Do you know what I mean? And when you've kind of got a tight circuit of people that you're doing content with, it's hard to just be here, there and everywhere. But for the sake of it being the summer, and there's actually not much ball going on, but there's still plenty to talk about. I don't mind just catching up with people. So yeah, just jumping on and collaborating with people a little bit more, just so, you know, I just find it mad people want to talk to me. I get why you want to talk to me. Do you get me? Like, we talk almost every single day anyway, so I get why, you know, we collaborate. Same way I've got you on Red Cartel, because we know how far we can push each other, the chemistry, all them things. But people that, again, I either see on YouTube or I see on social media, and then they say, yeah, do you want to jump on something and do something? I'm like, wow, you want to talk to me? Like, wow, that's quite sick. Yeah, I'll sit down and talk to you for half an hour, an hour. Like, yeah, I just chop it up. You know me, I chat you for days. So, yeah, so there'll be more of that. Literally, that'll be what it boils down to.
I think we need to make sure that as long as United can do the business, I'll be back on 12th man race for Europe in no time. But we need to sign the players, mate. But look, Errol, honestly, thank you so much for joining tonight. You have been an absolute superstar. Chat, remember, I've seen a lot of you saying about raiding. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm gonna start doing that. I will start doing that. It's obviously picking the right one to do it too. And thank you so much, Sophie. You've been superstar tonight. Thank you so much. Been good having you in here tonight, Errol, even if you are at no, Moxie, no, definitely don't do that. Love the banter with my Liverpool mates and have done for years. Guys, that's us going out tonight. Thank you very much. Make sure that you sign up to this beautiful community. Subscribe, like, share. Other than that, guys, Dan United, Errol Liverpool, Errol the Godfather, the Quadfather, not the Godfather, the Quadfather, over and boots.